Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Italia Garcia, and I'll be your host tonight. Welcome to our Google Hangout, where today we will discuss the new immigration initiatives, expanded DACA and DAPA, that will benefit millions of families. A small part of that initiative is going to help individuals who were brought to here as children without documents. This is the expansion of the Dreamers program we all know as DACA. The other part is known as DAPA, which is for undocumented parents of U.S. citizens and lawful permanent residents, known as LPRs. I myself am a DACA recipient. I immigrated from Mexico City at the age of 10, and I've grown up in California. I am currently the regional coordinator for Mi Familia Vota. Before qualifying for DACA, I served as the first undocumented student body president for Riverside City College and co-founded the first and only undocumented student support organization at Riverside City College. I am happy to say that I was able to graduate with a bachelor's degree in political science with a minor in women's studies from the University of California at Riverside. Thanks to DACA, many people like me are able to graduate from college and work here. We're here today to answer your questions about the new immigration initiatives that will help many people, and to talk about how you can prepare and or help your family or a friend to get ready. Plus, ways you can make a difference in your community and for your future. You may have heard in the last couple of months, or last couple of days actually, that a federal judge in Texas issued a temporary order to block expanded DACA and DAPA. We'll talk a little bit more about that during this hangout, what that means to our family and friends. I'd like to start by introducing our panel. Wilmer Valderrama, an actor and a co-chair of Voto Latino Artist Coalition and a tireless advocate for Latino community. He also volunteers his time with two organizations like CHCI and regularly appears on CNN, MSNBC, ABC, NBC Univision, advocating for Latino rights and sharing his personal story. You can currently catch him on El Rey networks from dusk till dawn, but might also know him as a role as Fez on That 70s Show. Next is Diane Guerrero, who recently received her first Screen Actors Guild Awards and is a cast member of Orange is the New Black. Also a cast member of Jane and the Virgin. Diane officially became an immigration reform advocate last November when the Los Angeles Times published her powerful op-ed that told her story as a citizen daughter of undocumented parents. She now serves as the ambassador for Immigrant Legal Resource Center. We also have Julie Rodriguez. She works at the White House. She is a special assistant to the president and senior deputy director of public engagement. She's a longtime advocate from my home state, California. Over the past 2 years, Julie has served as the White House primary liaison to the Latino community and on immigration-related issues. In this role, she has coordinated the White House efforts surrounding common sense immigration reform and outreach to Latino community on the Affordable Care Act, jobs in the economy, and education reform, among other presidential priorities. Also joining us tonight, Debbie Smith, an attorney specializing on immigration law who has practiced for nearly 30 years in the nonprofit, private, and public sectors. She is the Associate General Counsel / Immigration Law at SEIU. Prior to working at SEIU, Debbie was a senior attorney at Catholic Legal Immigration Network, Inc., and a staff attorney at the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit in San Francisco. She has tons more experience working with immigrant families. We will begin with a couple of questions. Many of us turning in today are either children of immigrants or immigrants ourselves. Many of us come from humble beginnings and are living out not only our dreams, but the dreams of our parents. Can each of you share a little bit about your family's immigration story and why this topic is so important to you personally? Why don't we start with you, Diane?
Well, my parents came to the U.S. from Colombia, and I was born in the U.S. and I grew up in Boston. And I experienced firsthand what it was like to live in this very complicated immigration system. and I understand why some people are so frustrated. And seeing that frustration, obviously what happened to my family, made me want to participate and be part of trying to fix it. So that's why I'm here.
Should I go next?
Yeah.
Okay, I guess
Yes.
that was a very tough act to follow, by the way.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
So I
Oh,
was raised in Venezuela. My mother is Colombian. My father is Venezuelan. And I was raised in Venezuela until I was about 14 years old. And for economic and political reasons, my parents decided that it was time for us to come back to the United States. We, I share a very interesting story because I was born in Miami, but I was raised in Venezuela. So my parents are Colombian and Venezuelan. So when we returned to the United States, we shared the very same immigrant story that anybody else did. I didn't know how to speak English. I didn't know how to count to three. And I always say this, but I think the only word that I knew how to say, the only word that I knew in English was monkey. And that really doesn't really help me for a lot. So I kind of just took that as a hint that I really needed to actually apply myself and learn how to speak English. And I was the first one in my household to learn how to speak English alongside my sister. And very much like a lot of you out there, you can relate to the fact that we often are the ones who kind of translate the manuals for the vacuum and answer the phone calls and fill in the applications for our families and things like that. And so that was kind of my full-time job at the beginning. And in coming to America, we knew for a fact that that our number one job was here to work and in search of that American dream. So we came here very humble with the little bit of savings that we had. We sold everything we had in our country to just kind of return and come back to the United States. And again, the same immigrant story that all of us shared together, which is you come here to work, achieve the American dream, and then now in desperate search to pay that forward with millions of families that can relate to that type of story.
Well, if I knew we were gonna show off, Wilmer, okay?
I'm just trying to make it relatable, I'm just trying to make sure people
No,
really.
totally. I was like,
I got to sneak in the part that I was, I'm also,
yeah, you got your first word down, everything, monkey. Like, damn, I had words.
I make you cry, I make you smile, I make you laugh, I make you feel.
continue on. All of us in this panel are passionate advocates for immigration reform. But Wilmer and Diane, your day job is a little different than the rest of ours. How has being an actor impacted your activism? Do you think the industry recognizes how big of an issue this is to many of American public and growing immigrant community? Diane, do you want to start?
Are you asking me that question?
Yes. So how has this impacted you as your role as an actor and now as an activist? Do you think the community recognizes the struggle as what would you say in terms of bringing out the issue as an activist and someone who the community looks up to?
Right. Well, I think that as a Latina and as an right. Well, I think that as a Latina and as an actress, and I think for me to come out with such a first story and talk about such a sensitive issue, I think that people who are on this side with us, very frustrated with the system, very afraid of our families being separated. I think it's been wonderful. I think that this has offered me a platform to put an input to what's going on and to put a face to what's happening to real people. So I feel very fortunate to be part of this, but it's definitely I think opened up more of a wide conversation and has made people kind of open their ears a little more and want to participate as well.
So Diane, in Jane the Virgin, you deal with issues of immigration, and in Orange is the New Black, it also reflects the diversity of our population and of our social economic standings. How do you feel about that?
I'm happy. I'm really happy that I'm part of two shows that are so open to our people and are willing to tell our stories. As you know, I know in Jane the Virgin, first opened up about it and talked about it. I was very proud to be a part of that because it's something that you don't see. And then on Orange is the New Black, to be part of something that represents so many different kinds of women and so many different people and so many different issues. It really kind of shows a humane side of people who make mistakes. It shows you that we are real people facing really interesting and very scary issues and having to make decisions in a world that is often against you. Um, so I think that we're showing a real face to these sort of situations, and maybe we can create some sort of empathy for people who are going through this, mainly us.
Thank you for sharing. And now, Wilmer, how has being an actor impacted your activism? Can you share a
Well,
little bit more about that?
yeah, of course. I mean, I share the same, interest as Diane did. I very few times it's really you really truly understand the type of impact and the type of influence you can really have on a community, on your fans, or your ability to actually make a little noise through the press and highlight, or at the very least, bring a little attention to something that needs to be talked about. And it all started back in 2005 when I did a movie called Fast Food Nation. Fast Food Nation was a movie that was from director Richard Linklater, who just got a couple of nominations for Boyhood. But he did this movie called Fast Food Nation with the author of Fast Food Nation, the movie, called Eric Slosser. His name was Eric Slosser, and in the movie I played a Mexican undocumented immigrant that crosses the border and takes a job at a slaughterhouse. And the slaughterhouse jobs are technically, they're considered some of the probably one of the top two most dangerous jobs in the United States. It's invisible labor, it's disposable labor to some of these corporations, and therefore, I humanizing and giving a face to this group of workers that come out here and almost become this disposable human being, was very eye-opening for me. And Richard Linklater and Eric Slosser said, hey, you have an opportunity, some people are listening, some of your young fans have yet to create a real point of view about things. And if you share your views, if you share your point of view, some people could relate to it and you might spark some kind of passion in people. So then he pretty much sent me to Washington, D.C. to talk about immigration and all of that stuff. And then that was back in 2005. And I've been at it since 2005, and I've been very outspoken, and I have to say, I've been kind of disappointed by a lot of my peers and a lot of my colleagues, who, in the name of saying I don't get into conversations of politics, they lack the understanding of the fact that what we are speaking about are human issues, our family issues, our multi-generational issues. This is not a Republican issue. This is not a Democrat issue. This is an issue that affects all of us directly and indirectly, whether you like it or not. And we can relate to it on 30 different levels. It's just that people have yet to really stop for a second and really think, how is this really connected to me, and they don't understand that all of us share an immigrant story, whether they think of it or not. So so for me, that was the moment where it kind of just made me feel like, if not a few of us, then who else is gonna be, so, and that's kind of how it all started.
Great, thank you for sharing. Definitely, I think putting a face to the issue, which is what you and Diane and all the advocates have done, and actors, we see you on TV all the time, and we think that you're some kind of, for a lot of us, we put a lot of actors in a pedestal, and it's really good to see that you know about the struggle, you're willing to participate. So I think, on behalf of the immigrant community, as an undocumented person myself, we really appreciate you standing up and solidarity with us and willing to put your face out there. And in an issue, politics definitely, whether people want to admit it or not, it affects our everyday lives. So that's something we really appreciate. So moving on now, as I mentioned before, we're here today to answer your questions. The audience, thank you so much for those who submitted questions for our panel. We'll do our best to answer as many as possible. But before we start, I mentioned a minute ago that the federal court decision on Monday has thrown a small wrench into the week's kickoff for DACA extension program. Julie, can you give us a quick recap on what this means for those who are eligible?
Yes, definitely. And thank you all so much for having me on today, and for those of you that are, joining us across the country. I think that this is, a temporary setback, and I really want to make sure that folks understand the fact that, that this effort is an important effort that we believe we have strong legal standing on, and that we will continue to move forward and to, be ready once we're able to fully implement this program. I also want to make sure that folks understand that the lawsuit specifically went after the expansion of deferred action for childhood arrivals and deferred action for parents, but does not impact deferred action for childhood arrivals that the President and the Department of Homeland Security initiated in 2012. So for those individuals that are eligible for the original DACA process, they can still request deferred action. Now, as I mentioned, this is just a minor setback, and this is only one aspect of the President's executive orders that was taken to court. And we, the Department of Justice, will be looking at what our next steps are to make sure that we are doing all that we can to move forward and to fully implement the President's actions. We know that every day that goes by, there's a real cost to it. There are real families and people that are affected, and so we want to move forward as quickly as possible with implementing it. And again, I think this court decision is a minor setback and a bump in the road, but we are going to continue moving forward strong and be ready to implement as soon as we're able.
Great. Thank you so much, Julie. We have received a question from Daniela Flores, who asks, I just renewed my DACA about a month ago, and I noticed my DACA application said it was for a 3-year permit. Will this suspension of DACA expansion affect the process of my application? Debbie, if you care to explain.
Hi, well, first of all, thanks for asking the question. It's a really good question, and it's a question that I hope by the time your case gets decided, since you applied for DACA and you don't yet have the answer about your renewal, I hope by the time you do have the answer for the renewal that the case in Texas, where the judge issued an injunction, will be found to be wrong, and that the judge's decision will no longer be in effect. Because one of the aspects of the judge's decision was that the 3-year extension for work authorization was part of the expansion of DACA. And apparently that may be affected, we don't know. So at this point, you don't have the answer to your DACA renewal, and by the time that you do, I hope that this case will be resolved and we'll be able to move forward with extended DACA and DAPA also. Julie, what do you think?
Thank you so much, Debbie.
Do you agree with that?
Yes, I mean, I think, our hope, again, is to be able to fully implement what the President has put forward. We know that it's not just something that will benefit millions of undocumented immigrants out there, but it's also something that's good for our country, it's good for our economy. It's the right thing to do for all the right reasons, and which is why we are so steadfast in making sure that that these efforts get implemented as soon as possible.
Thank you. Diane, you have personally seen the fallings of the immigration system. What advice do you give to people who are frustrated now?
I would say first and foremost, to be as informed as you can. Laws change all the time, and with such a sensitive issue, there'll be many ideas and opinions floating around. Make sure you have the facts. Um, there's going to be times where you feel really frustrated and feeling like you want to give up, but I would say don't. It's taken me and my family 14 years to even revisit this issue and try to now um, maybe rescue our lives and our family. And I've been rescuing myself by even getting involved. I would say get all your stuff together and avoid the easy way out. That's it.
Great. Thank you for sharing. Our next question is for Wilmer. What documents do I need to apply?
Well, I mean, right now you have to gather pretty much all the information that you need. You know, the documentations of, you know, the states, the normal, right? I mean, your anything that really claims that you are here and that you are present and that you can prove your existence. You know, I think that's important. You know, a lot of the facts. You know, how many years you've been here. You know, where do you currently work? You know, how do you make a living? You know, and have you ever had any kind of incidents with the law? You know, I mean, that you have to make some small inventory of all the things to be ready. You know, and to really understand the fact that you do have a shot at subscribing, you do have a shot at being part of the system and enjoying this executive order. And I think that that to me is important. I think that most of them is that it's for me personally, I know that it's about stating, the fact that you are here to willing to work, but it's about just gathering those documents that really state, who you are and who you are here truly as a person. That is the honest, first step.
Great. Thank you so much, Wilmer. Now we come to Edgar, who has two questions. When does DAPA start? DAPA, my mom is a permanent resident. Can she bring my brother from El Salvador right away? Right now, both expanded DACA and DAPA have applications dates. Correct, Debbie?
Yes, well, that's a good question because at this point, DAPA is not yet in effect. It wasn't anticipated to start until May 19th. So right now, we're hoping that the court case will be resolved by that time in a positive way, so DAPA will be able to be initiated as planned. So right now, we're encouraging people, as we've been saying, to gather documents, to gather proof, to get copies of your cell phone records, whatever you have to demonstrate that you've lived in the United States since January 1st of 2010. But in terms of your question about your mom, who is, I guess, in the process of immigrating your brother, there's a whole complicated system called the family preference system that allocates a certain number of green cards, of visas, each year for each country for different kinds of relationships. So if your mother is immigrating your brother and your brother is under the age of 21 and unmarried, he's going to be able to immigrate faster than if he were over the age of 21. So I don't think I have enough information to tell you how fast he'll be able to immigrate. Maybe one of the things that your mother might want to consider is whether or not she's eligible to become a U.S. citizen, because U.S. citizens can immigrate their family members much more quickly, especially their family members who are children under the age of 21. So let us know how it works out. Give us more information later.
Great. Thank you so much for that response, Debbie. Nemra asks, will applying for DACA or DAPA help me get a green card or improve my chances of getting one eventually? Julie, would you care to answer that, please?
Yeah, definitely. As the president laid out and has announced in his November 20th actions, these are actually just a temporary relief from deportation. But these deferred action is not a process by which will lead to some other form of legal status. In fact, this is just temporary. It's an important first step forward, and we believe it's, again, an important way for us to be able to more effectively, utilize our enforcement resources so that we are not in a position where we are separating families, and instead we are actually focused on those that are doing harm or attempting to do harm in our country. But these, again, are temporary, and what we need to, while we continue to fight for full implementation of DACA expansion and DAPA, we also need to continue the broader fight for common sense immigration reform and for a real permanent solution that would provide a real pathway to legalization and a pathway to citizenship for the millions of undocumented immigrants that are, I know the president says this a lot, but that are as American as you or I or most of us sort of on this panel. I think it's, again, that we not lose sight of the longer term game while we continue to fight for, immediate relief for our families.
Thank you. Yes, that's definitely important that we continue to fight for a permanent solution. Now, what would you say to those who oppose the president's immigration action? Wilmer, why don't we start with you first, and then Diane, you can tell us your thoughts.
I think that there's been, it's so funny, I've had a version of this conversation a few times in the last 6 years. Every time everyone says the word immigration, immediately they think it's an issue, it's a problem. Like, let's just let's go on record saying that the word immigration is not a problem, it's a gift. It's the biggest gift this country's ever had. And the problem we're having here is that we have a system that doesn't necessarily address the undocumented immigrants that are here, honestly working like anybody else, with kids who are getting better grades than anybody who has either a green card or a citizenship, and that just want to be an honest member of this national community as they are contributing to the engine of this country. So I think that what a lot of what's happening is there's a lot of this misconception about the conversation. Everyone is listening to a different version of this conversation and creating points of views and creating some kind of a stand based on facts that they've yet to really understand, or even how it affects them. And a lot of them don't even know that even that this becoming true, and all these millions of undocumented, honest people, joining the national community, one, will provide, and I have, I've been researching a lot of these facts, and I've been sent over the facts by an amazing group of people that are allowing me to enjoy the here. But this actually can mean billions of dollars to multiple states of the United States. Also tons of resources to the local communities, from schools to budgets for schools, for education, and local services like everything else that you might need, from your local government. You get more funding the more that we can count and understand that you exist. So it's two different sides of the coin. I think a lot of people don't understand that it's actually a really great way to boost the economy, not only in your community but your state, and eventually help the country as a whole. And I think a lot of people don't understand that it affects them directly and indirectly. There are certain services that they don't even understand that actually, exist. And I think that to me is another verse of the conversation. And I think that they don't really understand, the facts. And that to me is the saddest part, is that a lot of the people that are opposed to this conversation, are listening to a number of reasons that don't necessarily apply to even their household. And their definition of this conversation is based on hype, based on a point of view that just so one-sided and is strategically manifested to deconstruct and to chip away the credibility of the fact that this indeed can be great for our country.
Thank you for sharing those thoughts. Now, Diane, what would you say to those who oppose the president's immigration action?
Yeah, I think it's very
very similar to what Wilmer said. It's just,
Yeah, I think it's, I mean, very similar to what Wilmer said. It's just
and you're going to be
ignorant,
afraid.
you know.
I think that
If you
a
don't,
lot of people aren't
and
seeing
a lot of people aren't
benefits
seeing the benefits that come with a more inclusive um, country. It would completely injure public interest if you have people in a community who are afraid to speak out, and who if something happens, let's say in your community that needs to be said, there people aren't going to come out and cooperate. That's a problem. You want people to contribute to public safety. You want people to contribute to our economy. So I, I think I think it's all really just exclusive, you know, not people voice.
Yes, definitely. Thank you. We all have such unique immigrant stories and experiences. I firmly believe it's very important to share them. Wilmer, this question was directed to you. From Noy Maman wants to know, when will when will when you got to America, did you have any trouble integrating into the American society? What helped you deal with those issues?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that there's a little bit of a fish out of water always when you come to this country. First of all, the first thing that you notice right away is that there is a level of freedoms and there is a level of, you know, of opportunity here that you definitely don't share in our countries. That's evident from the moment you arrive. You definitely identify the American flag as a symbol of hope. So you work hard knowing that at some point something amazing can happen. So that there's a difference there. When I first came to the United States, back in 1993, 94, it was yet to be cool to be Latino. And we had almost zero to none, I mean, zero to none representation on mainstream television, on any network television, on the film. We didn't have images that resemble us, and most importantly, we didn't have images that kind of idolize our culture, or at the very least, made us look like equal members of this, United States. So entertainment, for us, kind of told us that we were a very small little group. So back then it felt like it was just three or two of us in a neighborhood. We were so fragmented, we were so segregated from each other, from communication. So it was tough. It was tough to identify and to feel that that there was a few more of us in the community out here. So it was a little scary. It was really scary, and I was petrified. I didn't know how to speak English, and I would go to the school, petrified, and not wanting people to actually talk to me. I would look down because I just didn't want to look stupid. A lot of people don't understand that it's a very hard transition for, can you guys hear me? Hello?
Yes, you're good. I think we had a minor interruption, but go ahead, keep going.
Yeah. So no. So the idea was to the idea for us was to say, okay, how can we get by, and it was just about adapting, but it was very scary. It was really, really tough. And especially when I entered the industry, when I entered Hollywood, there was I mean there was so little of us. It was I was the only Latino in the Fox network for like 4 or 5 years, and the entire slate between the X-Files, The Simpsons, Melrose Place, 90210, Alan McBeal, all these other shows. I mean, I was the only Latino on the network, and and even back then, people thought I was Indian. So it was tough to relate a lot of times. But you had to adapt. You kind of had to roll with the punches and just say, okay, cool. Well, we're here. This is our new home, and and we need to work hard.
Yes, thank you, definitely. We have another question. This one comes from Galo. If a person who has a deportation order in place, would she or he be eligible to apply for DAPA or DACA if she meets the DAPA requirements? And Julie, this is for you.
The short answer is yes. I know we want to get to additional questions, and so anybody that meets the eligibility requirements, regardless of where they may be in their deportation process, is eligible to request deferred action.
Great, thank you. Wilmer and Diane, can you tell our Hangout friends today here if there will be any resources available to help people apply, like the navigators who help to enroll people for the health plans? Wilmer, if you can start, will there be any resources?
I was gonna say ladies first, and I see that you changed your lighting, Diane, and I see what you did there.
It got dark. It got dark. Okay.
Well, no, you're trying to be a little mysterious. I get it. I see what you're doing there. Anyhow, so yeah, there's going to be a lot of tools. There's going to be a lot of information. I mean, everyone on this entire panel, can totally tell you every single one of us is doing our part. And us in associations with a number, with a number of people. I'm definitely trying to, help a lot of the initiatives the president has started. And I support that. And Voto Latino's website, also will direct you to a bunch of other places where they give you the multiple steps. I think also another thing to know that iamerica.org, will eventually, be giving you a lot of those tools to kind of prepare early for the process. But the most important thing, I think, to always remember here is that we need to talk to one another. We need to create a chain. We need to communicate with one another. We need to find a way that we can ignite that passion. That when the moment it's available, when the moment it's time to enroll, that we see millions and millions of our Latinos to come out and be confident that this is going to work, because this is done for them, and we have to give each other that confidence. We have to give each other that trust. That we gotta give each other that that little push that says, hey, we gotta trust the system. This is done for us, and we don't want it to go away. The more that we can sign up from the moment that it's available, the harder it is going to be for anyone to revert any kind of other situation later. Is the other thing. Like, we have millions and millions and millions eligible to do this. If we don't take advantage of this thing, it's going to be so much easier to say, look, it didn't work. No one's here. No one showed up. And we cannot do what we do in the midterm elections and other local elections. We cannot not just show up. We cannot afford that, and our community cannot afford that. So we have to make sure that everyone understands how critical and how urgent it is to be prepared with information, to be able to have the ability to navigate and not fall into fraud and get taken advantage of by shady operations. I think we have to make sure that we go out there and find the information from people like, iamerica.org and, Voto Latino and the White House. And, all of us are here that are trying to raise as much awareness as possible for the know-how to get involved.
Yes, thank you, Wilmer. Diane, would you mind adding anything else shortly?
Yeah, I want to emphasize how important it is for the sons and daughters of parents when it comes to navigating this kind of information. I know for a very long time, and still am the person who helps my parents out with documents, and especially when we were living here together. So please get informed and ask questions, and don't be afraid to ask. It's questions. It's going to the right organizations. It's trusting, that this is that people are out there to help. We're out there to help. And trusting that at the end of the day, I think everyone wants to see this through, and we don't want to see any more families separated. I think that rings true for a lot of people.
Yes, definitely. Thank you. And now we're going to hear from Margarita Jimenez, who asks, what will happen in 3 years to those of us who have applied for DAPA? Debbie, can you tell Margarita and many who are asking the same thing?
So DAPA is conceived of as being a renewable application. So from the beginning, there's the intention of if you're granted DAPA that you'll be able to reapply at the end of the 3-year period. Again, when the DAPA initiative comes into effect, when it's possible to apply for DAPA, you'll be given a 3-year work authorization, which then will allow you to get a Social Security card number, which will allow you to get a driver's license, and that is the beginning of the 3-year period. But it's a renewable 3 years, so you have to keep up with what's happening and make sure that before the 3-year period passes, you apply again. However, again, we said DAPA has not yet commenced. It hasn't begun yet. We're looking at May 19th, and we're hoping that this case is resolved by that time.
Great, thank you, Debbie. Here's another one for you. Alma Nunez asks, can you apply for DACA or DAPA if you have a dismissed domestic violence?
Okay, well, that's a really good question, and the issues related to criminal convictions and criminal histories, it's a complicated issue, and it's something that you're going to want to get someone to consult with. You're going to look for a reputable attorney or a BIA accredited representative who is knowledgeable, who understands the consequences of criminal convictions on immigration cases. But one quick thing to keep in mind, if your case was dismissed, if that's something that you were saying about your case, if your case was dismissed and there was no conviction, then you do not have a conviction. You don't have to worry about that. But if you have any question about whether it was dismissed, if you think maybe you were on probation, or you paid a fine, or you did something that indicates it was a conviction and not a dismissal, then it's something you have to be really careful about, and you have to talk to a reputable, knowledgeable attorney before you make the decision to apply, because people who have been convicted of a crime of domestic violence are not eligible for DAPA or DAPA.
Okay, now, thank you so much, Debbie. Wilmer has a question. Wilmer, would you care to ask?
Yeah, my question will be for my friend Julie. I think, one of the biggest issues our community has, and I think you definitely know firsthand as well, is that there is this smaller fear in the back of their head. There's a little bit of that concern that if they go and expose themselves, if they go out there and expose themselves and say, hey, I'm an undocumented worker, I'm an undocumented immigrant, hi, I'm a dreamer, I want to stay here, and all that, and they expose themselves and knowing that they're undocumented, that eventually they will get caught and they will get deported. That, there's a little bit of that fear in everyone's mind. I think it'd be awesome to hear a little bit of that, the security of the process and understanding that that's just not how it works.
That's a great question, Wilmer, and thanks so much for raising this issue. I think that we have a very strong track record with the first sort of DACA 1.0, for lack of a better description, or the first DACA that we announced in 2012. There's approximately 640,000 young dreamers that currently have DACA today, and who are able to pursue more of their lives or more fully live their lives in ways that they previously weren't able to do. Many of them were able to get a driver's license, or able to pursue careers that are more in line with what they studied in college. Some of them are now able to go to college, or they're able to do other things to be able to provide for their family. And so I think these 640,000 young dreamers are a perfect example that when people come forward, when they are able to request and receive deferred action, that it actually has a very transformational effect in their lives in a positive way. And so that's why the president has put forward the more recent executive actions, and that's why we will continue to fight hard to ensure that they're fully implemented, because again, we know that when it comes to immigration, and this is one of my favorite lines from an early speech that the president gave, but when it comes to immigration, it's not just about policy, it's about people. And that's something that I keep in my heart day in and day out as I'm working here at the White House, and as I'm continuing to work with you all to educate our community, is that we can never lose sight that this effort, that all of our hard work, all of our struggle is really about people. It's about families. It's about young individuals that want to make a difference and just want to live their lives more fully.
Hmm. That's amazing.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much. Now we're going to hear from Carlem, who asks us, I have been trying to apply for DACA, but I haven't had the money. Is it necessary to pay someone to help me do all the paperwork, or can I do it myself? This question will go for Debbie.
Well, some people who feel comfortable dealing with the paperwork themselves, they can go ahead, especially if they don't have any complications in their case. If they've never been deported, if they've never been arrested, if they don't have any criminal convictions, maybe that's they feel comfortable and they just can go ahead and apply for themselves. But there have been many, many workshops for people who don't have the money to get help but feel like they could use a little help. There have been workshops where people have been able to get help from members of the community, from nonprofit lawyers, from pro bono lawyers. And I think it's worth checking out to see if there's a workshop where you can get information and get a consultation before you make the choice to go forward and apply on your own.
No way.
Hello?
I will just do that.
So I think that there was a another question that I saw come in that refers to how documents collected by deferred action process, how that might be used. And so I do want to assure folks, again, I think we've had some good experience with DACA 2012, where there's a very clear separation between the work that U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services that processes all of the deferred action requests. There's a very clear separation between that, that department, for lack of a better description, within Homeland Security from the enforcement arm. So even if a person today that qualifies for the original deferred action program process, if they submit their request and they are denied their request for whatever reason, that information will not be shared with immigration enforcement. There's a very clear, again, separation from those two entities and components, and it's important that the community understands that because again, we want to make sure that people are not afraid to come forward, that are not worried about whether or not they will ultimately qualify for deferred action. We want people to feel comfortable being able to come forward and being able to initiate this process and see if it's actually something that they are able to receive.
Thank you so much, Julie. This is Yandere with Voto Latino stepping in to continue our hangout today. I have a question for our entire panel. There are a lot of families out there who every day are worried about deportation. They're worried about whether their family members are going to come home, whether they'll be reunited with their children at the end of the day. What would each of you say to these families who have this worry and to the folks out there who are so passionate about this issue? We'll go with Julie first, Debbie, and then Wilmer.
Well, I would just say, again, that I think it's an important opportunity that we want to make sure folks are not, worried about coming forward. They're not worried about exposing themselves. They're not worried about reaching out to their employer to get, information from, their place of employment to be able to demonstrate their presence here. We want to make sure that folks feel as comfortable as possible coming forward. And so I think, again, there are hundreds of thousands of examples where this has been done and been done effectively. And I know that there are, dreamers across the country in every community, I would imagine in every city across this country that could share firsthand what their experience has been with deferred action for childhood arrivals, and would encourage more of those young people to step forward and to talk about their experience and why DACA has changed their life, and encourage them to also be able to work with others in their community to be able to come forward and to be able to engage in this process.
Perfect. Thank you, Debbie.
Yeah, well, I would encourage people to get as much information as they can. Get it from iAmerica. iAmerica is a great source of information. Get it from your friends, and not just from, you don't have to just get information from attorneys like me. There's information in lots of different places. But don't go to notaries, don't go to people who are out to exploit you. Get information that's valuable and that's correct. iAmerica is a really good source of information. I was saying before that you can only you can apply for DACA right now. You can apply for DACA, and hopefully in the future you'll be able to apply for DACA, expanded DACA, and DAPA, and you'll be able to apply both with attorneys, with PIA or attorney representatives, and also there will be a tool on iAmerica that will allow people to apply on their own, and it will help screen you to determine if you have any of the problem kinds of cases. But I would also urge people to get involved. I know that there are groups called DACA Moms, and they come every Tuesday night to a clinic in Tucson, and they help people apply for DACA. They, even if they're serving coffee or telling people where to sit in the auditorium, they're involved and they're being helpful in the community.
That's great. That's great that the community's getting so involved. Wilmer, what would you say to these families who worry about this every day?
I'm sorry, you were breaking up a little bit. What did you say?
What would you say to the families who are worried about this issue every day? What message would you have for them, for those who are every day worried about deportation, whose lives are being affected because we have a Congress that won't pass a comprehensive solution to this problem? What hope or encouragement could you give them?
Well, I first and foremost, I like to say that the president made an executive order on behalf of not just Latinos but every immigrant that shares that same the same dilemma, the same feeling, that same fear, and that we have to now do our part. I think that now he has been able to get it up to this place, and I think now it's up to us to help the president and the White House and the administration to continue to drive home what the purpose of that executive order is. I think we have to be now more passionate than ever. We need to really understand the facts. We need to understand, the tools we have and the access to the information that we have. And just to say a few things, to those families and those young dreamers and everybody else who shares that, the same concern. Look, the truth of the matter is that united, all of us in numbers united, we cannot be denied. And that is a fact. If we're able to talk to one another, if we can create a network of all of us who can relate to one another on this human issue, and then we can get out there and enroll, we're going to make a statement that's going to have to be taken serious no matter what party you're in, no matter how many congressmen or senators agree with this. I think that this is the issue, is that now more than ever we have to believe in our community. Now more than ever we have to help our community understand and take this as serious as it can. For me, I did an interview a little while ago on Univision, and they asked me, how did I feel the day that the president made that executive order? They asked me what went through my mind, and with tears in my eyes, I can tell you it was fresh air. It was fresh air that somebody could stand up for us on this level, and for me, now it's about us doing our part. Not have fear, to be confident, to understand that this was done for us to have one opportunity out there to actually get our mind set at peace. And so know that there's going to be a few little steps. There's going to be a little bit of a process, but we're going to get it done. And the only way that is going to be achieved is if we talk to one another, if we create this network, if we can really give each other the information and look out for one another. We can truly get there, man. And the tools are there, the knowledge is there, the education is there, and now all we have to do is start building the tomorrow we want. You're on mute. by the way.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that, all three of you, for that answer. Super, super important question. Italia, I think, has joined us again. Hi, Italia. Welcome back.
Hi, this is what happens when you have a little bit of a dinosaur computer, I think.
Your modem is going crazy.
Yeah, I think so. It can't handle us, you know. We're too good for this computer. Thank you, Wilmer, for sharing those, for sharing your thoughts. I definitely, you know, we couldn't agree more. Just putting ourselves out there and just, you know, the feelings of frustration. I think we definitely all feel that right now. But at the same time, it's very motivating us to do something about it and not just, you know, stand back. So the next question, we're going to be closing with Fatima. She has a really good question. Give me just 1 second. If you can fill in, my computer's having troubles. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, not a problem. That's why it's a team effort here. The next question we have, it's a really important one. We're getting close to the hour, to the end of our hangout, but Fatima sent us a really important question. She says, I know people who could benefit so much from the immigration action, but they're afraid to use it. What advice can I give them if they're hesitating because they're afraid to get caught? Diane, can you give us some perspective on this one?
Yeah, I think that for the very first time we have been given, well, not for the very first time, but we've been given an opportunity to really make a difference and to really help our situation. I think that being afraid hasn't helped us in the past, and it won't continue to help us. I think it's really important to get involved and to lose all that fear so that we can accomplish what's going on. And I know that this isn't a permanent solution. However, if, like Wilmer said, if no one applies and if not enough people see this through, then it'll all go away, and then it'll all be for naught. And then we're stuck in the same situation we were in before, as where no one wants to talk about it, nobody wants to continue further, and then we're just left in the dark, being afraid, and living in that fear. And I think we've come too far to just stay there. So I would say to just continue going and know that that we have the support. That's the support of millions of us. We're really a strong community, and we see that in our culture. We see that when we see our families. We see that when we get together. And now it's time to exercise that fully and not be afraid, because we are part of this country too, and we are a very beautiful part of this country.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much, Diane. And now here's a good question with an answer that will apply to all of us. Jose Chavez has this question for Diane and Wilmer. What can I do to get involved? Major respect to both of you helping out in the Latino community. It's people like you that inspire us and keep us going every day. So Wilmer, if you care to answer shortly, what can people do to get involved?
You know, get involved.
How?
How was that, Yandere? You proud of that?
Perfect. That's perfect.
Oh, thank you. Wait, so can you repeat the question again? Because I was.
How can people get involved? What would you tell all of our viewers tonight? What can they do at home, wherever they're at right now?
First and foremost, I think as a family, you got to come together. You know, I think that the kids have to help. You know, with the information, they have to comprehend, and they have to get all the information possible they can get to eventually be ready for when the moment is ready to be applied. You know, you can just go in and it's a turnkey. I think that's number one. Get the information, gather all the information that you can. Another fun fact that that we found out about Latino, and Yandere, can you elaborate on the social media of it all, the login of it all? Because if I explain it, it's probably going to be very long.
No problem. So at Voto Latino, we make sure that we use social media to reach out to young Latinos, because we know that that's where we are. We're online. And Wilmer is a great example of that. Wilmer uses his social media to inform people about issues that matter and makes time for things like this Google Hangout. Everybody on this panel has taken time out of their evening tonight to bring together a panel of people who are passionate about immigration and who are ready to answer questions. And this Hangout is just another example of the way that we use social media. We're bringing the White House to you. We're bringing advocates like Diane and Wilmer to your home. We're bringing Debbie, who brings the legal expertise that we so very much need to understand this issue right now. And social media is one of the most important tools we have to do that.
Wow, that was great. Well put, Yandere.
Great, thank you. Now we're gonna move on to our closing remarks, and we just want to first and foremost thank everyone for joining us tonight. Don't forget to go to iamerica.org for more information on how to apply, where to get legal help, how to get answers to your questions. I know you all have a lot of questions back at home, but you know we only have an hour, and Wilmer likes to talk a lot, so we'll wrap it up. And last but not least, if you're eligible to vote, register and vote. Go out to the polls. Get informed about all the elections that are happening in your area. You can register to vote at www.latinos2014.com. And that would be all for tonight. If anyone would like to add anything, and just once again, thank you for joining us tonight.
Yes, of course, and I'd like to.
Wilmer, I'm sure you will.
No, I'm just kidding. And I just one last final thought. If you are a natural, born activist, this is your opportunity. This is your opportunity to be part of a very special chapter in our community. And roll out the community. Go out there, get this information, and create your own personal Google Hangouts where you can talk to your friends, your community, your schools, and get more like-minded people to help you spread the word.
Yeah.
Diane, would you want to close up with anything?
Just encourage your family, encourage your friends, tell your kids, hide your wives. No, I'm kidding. No, I just get involved. This is a very exciting time, and for us, and we need to stand up and get together and just do something about this. Not only is it gonna possibly create change, or which it will, for the better, and it's gonna help your family stay together, but it's gonna make you just a more active member of this society, and I think that's what we all want, and that's definitely gonna inform your life, and it's gonna enrich your life for the better. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
So,
I believe you could add any closing remarks.
Yeah, so I just wanted to end with a quote, and I don't often, mention some of my family relationships, but I was fortunate enough to just grow up with an amazing mentor and grandfather who, this quote I know is known by some, but it came to mind as we were in this conversation. And my grandfather, Cesar Chavez, he said, once social change begins, it cannot be reversed. You cannot uneducate the person who has learned to read. You cannot humiliate the person who feels pride, and you cannot oppress the people who are not afraid anymore. And given the conversation that we've had tonight, I think now is a tremendous opportunity to be able to shed the fear, to be able to come together as a community, and to be able to come forward and stand up for what it is that the community deserves, and what is a real opportunity that that folks should be able to realize. So thank you all so much for hosting tonight.
Cool.
Come over here.
I just want
I don't have a phone. Is mine working?
Thank you all for joining tonight, and if anyone wants to add anything, we're on our last seconds.
Thanks so much for asking me. It's great to see all the energy and excitement and enthusiasm that you all bring. You're a lot younger than I am. I have children your age, and I feel inspired by hearing your stories, and I look forward to working with you in the future to make this program, this initiative work, and to build a more progressive, a better place for all of us and our kids in the future.